Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Gentlemen, tonight we're talking to you what I call autophagy, and right there you see that there's a bit of an issue with the pronunciation. I tried to research this and I finally thought I knew how to pronounce it, but our Toastmaster did the same and he came to a different pronunciation. So we'll agree to disagree. So the word is autophagy. Maybe that's a good example or a good suggestion for a word master to tell us finally what is the right way to pronounce this word. Now, what is autophagy? As you can see, the word consists of two parts. The first is auto and the second is phagy. Now, what does auto mean? Auto is obviously something that does something by itself. So if you have a car that has an automatic gearbox, it means it changes the gears itself. And phagy actually means to eat. So what does autophagy mean? It means to eat yourself. Now what does that mean? Does that refer to the fact that you might bite your nails? No, it doesn't. But it's not such a foreign concept, because if you ever had a bit of weight around your waist and you lost that, that actually means that your body ate that fat for energy. So you actually ate yourself. And autophagy is basically the same thing, but instead of eating fat, your body actually eats leftovers. So let me explain that. Let's say it's payday and you get a lot of money. So now you go out and you buy a pizza, and of course you buy a nice big one because you have money. You can't finish it, so you put it in the fridge. Tomorrow you buy some fish and chips. Also a large portion. You don't finish it, it goes into the fridge. But the very next day you run into a bit of a calamity. You lose your money. Maybe you lose your wallet, or you get a huge bill that you didn't expect, or your wife gets hold of your credit card, and all of a sudden, you're out of money. What you would then do is you go back to the fridge, and then that piece of pizza looks very alluring, and you eat that, and then next time you eat the fish and chips, and so on. And that's exactly what your body does when it goes into this state of autophagy. It actually eats leftovers, and on a cellular level, that involves little bits of protein that's left over in the cell and other waste products. So it's in essence a great way for your body to detox. Now, they found, and the theory goes this way, that basically your body is in one of two states. In the first state, when nutrients are abundant, it uses its energy for growth and reproduction. But when nutrients are scarce, it rather uses the energy to repair and to clean and to protect them itself. Now, why is autophagy an important subject? Well, it's because it's related to aging. And I'm sure for that reason everybody's interested in that, because we all want to live longer, or perhaps we don't want to live longer, but at least we want to be healthier for longer. So they talk about extending your lifespan, and they talk about extending your health span. So this is about extending that portion of your life where you don't suffer any of the dreaded diseases that come with old age. Now, one of the proponents of this new technology, or this new research, is a guy called Dr. David Sinclair, and he thinks that, or his hypothesis states that it's not really the damage to the DNA that causes aging. DNA being also called the genome. It's actually damage and loss of the epigenome. So what is the epigenome? Well, if you think of DNA as that long strand of the double helix, DNA is the same in every cell. So if you're a criminal and they do a DNA analysis, maybe you rape somebody, they don't need a semen sample. They can take a hair or maybe saliva, and they can extract the DNA from that, because the DNA stays exactly the same. What isn't the same is the way in which the DNA is coiled and bundled together. I can explain it by taking a page like this. Let's say this is the DNA, but in a cell, it will be coiled up. And that means that certain parts of the DNA is exposed, and it's those parts that then favor certain enzymes to be produced and certain proteins to be produced. And that makes the cell a heart cell, or cell in the eye, or cell in the skin. And with age, this cell gets confused about what its purpose is. And as a result of that, many of the effects of aging comes in. So, Dr. Sinclair said that these mistakes seem to accumulate with age, and that's what's causing the problems. And you can actually determine the extent to which this has happened experimentally. So you can determine your biological age through an experiment. And it's not only Dr. Sinclair that's proposing this whole new field of medicine. In 2012, there was a guy named Shinya Yamanaka, and he won the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine by identifying 4 factors that, if they are present on a cellular level, they actually reverse and fix many of the results of aging. And as you can well imagine, you don't get a Nobel Prize for junk science. So this is founded on very good scientific and rigorous scientific research. Now, those 4 factors also come into play when your body goes into this status of autophagy. And this Dr. Sinclair actually did the experiment on himself. He had his biological age determined, and although he was about 50 years old, it turned out to be that he's about 60 years old biologically. And then he started taking some steps, and years later he did the same experiment, and then it was closer to 30. So it seems that these techniques really work. And I'm pretty sure that you are now all very keen to hear what you can do to get into the state of autophagy. And it's one of those good news, bad news situations. The good news is you can actually do some stuff and take some steps to make sure that you experience autophagy. The bad news is you probably wouldn't want to do any of that. So let me list them. The first one is you must eat less frequently. Not necessarily less, but less frequently. Because autophagy is thought to start in the body after you fasted for about 18 hours. And from then on it increases. After 24 hours it's better, but it really takes off after 48 hours and after 72 hours. One famous person who practices this by eating 1 meal a day is the actress Jane Seymour. And she's 71 years of age. And do yourself a favor and go and Google some images and some videos, recent videos of her. And you will see, even though she didn't have any plastic surgery, she looks fantastic. And that's her secret, according to her. Something else you can do is eat less protein. That might be not so difficult. Or you can make sure that you are uncomfortably cool, or you can make sure that you are uncomfortably hot. And then you can also do some high intensity exercise. So all of these things are things we typically don't do. But this intermittent fasting has many other benefits. For example, it lowers insulin, it gives you more energy, it burns fat instead of glucose. Your body learns to adapt to metabolic processes, and that's a system or a process called ketosis. Now, I'm going to conclude by telling you about my experience with autophagy, although I've only recently played around with it by trying to eat less frequently. I'm fortunate in the sense that I don't really get hungry early in the morning. And if I had a good meal in the afternoon, I don't really get hungry at night. So I try to maximize on this situation that I have by trying to eat later in the morning and stop eating earlier in the afternoon. So I found it was pretty easy for me to do the 24 split between 20 hours of fasting and 4 hours when I have my meals. So I typically only start eating at 11 and then end at 3 o'clock. What's more difficult is to have 1 meal a day. Now, as I said, I only briefly started with it, and the question is, do I feel any effects? I think I feel better. I think I have more energy, but it's a bit difficult because then it might all just be a placebo effect. But I'm going to continue with this and see whether it's of benefit to me. And I actually need to conclude now with my speech, and I'll do that by concluding the way that I usually conclude an evaluation. I usually conclude by telling the person, I'm looking forward to your next speech. So my message to you as the audience is I'm looking forward to one or two of you trying this as well, and maybe using this as a topic of your speech for next time and telling us how you experienced it. Just finally a disclaimer, I'm not offering any medical advice. There are some people who should not go on this sort of fasting, so please consult with your medical practitioner first. But with that I conclude, and I really look forward to the next speech on this topic and to see what you have learned. Mr. Toastmaster.